Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest 20 things you didn't know about video. Let's go ahead and let's do another just random entry here. This one having to do with a world famous cryptid. Interestingly enough, I just saw a suggestion on this and that was neat to me because I was already working on it whenever I saw that suggestion. So thank you so much. I may just do a suggestions video soon, and then that way I can get everyone's suggestions all at once. But yes, this definitely has to do with an all-star cryptid. I've mentioned this one in my channel before, but I've hesitated on doing a major video on them, mainly because, again, it's so well known. There's a lot of things associated with it that people know about. But in looking at this information here, I thought I could find some of the items that still stand out. So 20 things, 20 interesting facts that you didn't know about Bigfoot. Obviously, yes, once you hear that name, that is the biggest name associated within the world of cryptids. So let's go ahead and let's talk about those items here, and then I'll give my own thoughts and opinions on them afterward. I'd love to hear what your comments are too. And once again, this is in no particular order. So number one is this. Lots and lots of people believe in Bigfoot. According to an official study that was done by the Wakefield Research, they stated ultimately that more than 50% of Americans do so. How amazing is that? Now, to be fair, some of those percentages are more on the lines of kind of believe to loosely believe, that kind of stuff. So it's nothing definitive. But ultimately, more than 50% of Americans have some belief in Bigfoot. Myself, personally, I'd wager that that's even higher. Probably some people just didn't mention their belief just to make sure that they didn't stand out, or maybe they had some hesitation on there. Number two is this. The usual characteristics, physical ones, of a Bigfoot are as follows. There's still variances of them across the world, but generally these are the more common traits. Is number one is that they tend to be about 7 to 10 feet tall, although in some cases they have been shorter, maybe some junior Bigfoots, or some cases taller as well, maybe some alpha Bigfoot, some very large ones in other words. And they've been reported as seen with speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. How amazing is that? You see something big like that running through the forest 35 miles an hour, that'll definitely catch your attention. On top of that, they have a very large mass, somewhere of about 500 to 1,000 pounds. Again, easily outdistancing anyone that's your average human when it comes to that mass. So in other words, this is a creature that is very tall, very powerful, and then very fast as well. Number three is this. It's not just known as Bigfoot, but there's various names associated with it. It all depends on where this Bigfoot is found. So the idea is multiple parts of the world have different names, and they include the following. There's, of course, Sasquatch, which is almost synonymous with the word Bigfoot here in America. There's the word Yeti as well. There's the Yowie. There's also the Almas. It just depends again on where you're going and across the world, and then ultimately there'll be some different versions of Bigfoot there. The name itself of Bigfoot, interestingly enough, comes from one simple trait: the very large footprints that it leaves. In fact, the usual size associated with these big feet are 24 inches long to 8 inches wide. These are those footprints that are now famous for having those plaster casts that people do of them whenever they find them afterward. Number four is this. The other usual physical characteristics of a Bigfoot tend to be more on the lines of it being humanoid. So not exactly human, but again, with human traits. First is having a very human-like face. It's that face that shows intelligence, the face that looks like whenever you're looking at it, that it's thinking and it's deciphering things. It's not just another animal, in other words. It also tends to have a flat nose, very, very broad shoulders, to the point that almost no neck is there. It's just pretty much one big mass of muscles, and then also much longer arms than your average human. Interestingly enough, the eyes have different characteristics too. The pupils are known to be of darker color, but at nighttime they have that glow to them. In fact, I believe it's called eye shine or something along those lines, where it's alleged to glow either yellow or red at night. So you'll know you're in the vicinity of a Bigfoot if you happen to see those particular particular colored eyes, let's say throughout the night forest. I have talked about that too in some of my past videos. Number 5 is this. Even though the actual existence of Bigfoot has been debated, some countries out there still consider them real enough to place them on the endangered species list. That's right. They're actually on a list of protected animals. For example, Russia, Germany, and France have officially declared this. Here in the U.S., apparently there's just one area, a county by the name of Skamania, located in Washington, that also designates that. I don't know, though, if there's any other areas in the U.S. that do so. Somebody might have to let me know in the comments below. But again, that means that if you find a Bigfoot, maybe you're hitting the lottery when it comes to doing that, you cannot do any harm to them. Anything that shows proof of you harming them in some way whatsoever, even including to capture them or hunt them altogether, that means that because of their Endangered Species Act, then you're going to have some problems with the government afterward. Number 6 is this. If you've ever wondered what states in the U.S. harbor the most sightings, well, you can wonder no more. This was very surprising to me. I had no idea. It was Washington State, California, how about that, right? Florida, and then also Illinois. Now, Florida, I could definitely see that. I've probably talked about more encounters there, some that come to mind than some of the other states, but Washington stood out to me, and then also Illinois, because of the fact that it's cold. Like, it can get pretty cold up in those locations unless these Bigfoot are able to warm themselves up some way, like deep in some caves, make sure they can stay out of the cold temperatures. California also surprised me because it's California. It's pretty much the most populous state within the country. Unless they happen to be in some areas that are almost nomadic, you wouldn't think that there would be more encounters there. So Bigfoot seems to like both freezing and super hot temperatures, and the super hot ones being in the Florida area too. Number 7 is this. Bigfoot sells merchandise galore. Despite the fact that they have no ownership to their likeness, nothing that they can do with regards to trademarking their names or their image, it has been used multiple times in so many products. You've seen them. I've seen them. They're on television ads. They're on newspaper, magazine ads, online as well. Bigfoot's image has been used to be sold on pizza, to beef jerky, of course, monster trucks. That's one of the more famous ones. The decals associated on the skateboards, kayaks, t-shirts as well. Even movies, one of the most famous ones being Harry and the Henderson. And then the usual iconic image of a Bigfoot, at least today's representation, comes from the famous Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin film. So again, anything involving Bigfoot, it's not only the #1 cryptid that's out there in the world, but also it has a big selling factor, large marketability associated with it. Number 8 is this. You'll know you're in the vicinity of a Bigfoot, not just because of those eyes that I was mentioning earlier, either glowing yellow or red at night, but it's this, a smell. The Bigfoot has a very pungent smell. We're talking horrible type smell. It ranges something along the lines of your average skunk, but multiplied by a certain factor, and then also smelling like either rotten food or eggs. So if you're within the vicinity of anything involving a Bigfoot, you'll know because it's going to definitely stink. It's going to stink really bad. One has to imagine it comes from that thick fur that it has, fur that it no doubt doesn't wash or do anything else to clean it, and so it has that pungent smell as well. Number 9 is this. Another characteristic of a Bigfoot being in the vicinity has to do with its vocalizations. These have a wide range as well. There's the idea that there's a howl that you can hear whenever you're in the vicinity of a Bigfoot. It sounds really freaky too. There's multiple videos out there on YouTube that showcase those howls, like people, in other words, that are in the forest. They're at night, somewhere in the far distance, they're hearing these howls, and then it just, I don't know, it just sounds very unsettling. I would get out of there at that point, because who knows if those howls are for you or they're for other Bigfoot that are surrounding the other areas. But it also ranges to whistles, and then also to grunts, and then also various forms of moans. And this does not seem to be by accident. Instead, it's seen as an intelligent form of language. So these Bigfoot might just truly be communicating between each other whenever you hear those howls. It could be for mating calls. It could be for something else involving territorial disputes, or they could just be trying to scare the hell out of you whenever you're nearby their location. Number 10 is this. Bigfoot sightings go back way, way, way back. In fact, some of the oldest ones are depicted on petroglyphs from some Native Americans. In fact, the dates associated with them can range from 500 to 1,000 years. No doubt it could be even longer, but there just has to be other discoveries showcasing that when it comes to Bigfoot. In fact, one of the most famous ones is at an Indian reservation in California, which showcases a group of Bigfoots, and it's titled The Family. And also on that world involving Native Americans, many tribes consider Bigfoot to be an actual animal of the world. It holds a special place there in nature, and others believe it to be more along the lines of a spiritual animal too. Number 11 is this. All those sightings does in turn lead to another problem involving hoaxes. To this day, and I'm sure it'll be something else soon. In fact, some of the more recent stuff comes to mind as well. There are people that are going to try to pull hoaxes. They know that this kind of stuff makes money, and so they'll try to do something to either showcase quote-unquote proof involving hair associated with a Bigfoot or another encounter with footage, like found footage type stuff. It'll just keep going on and on because there's very few ways to try to dispute something and very few ways to try to prove that it's real as well. In fact, one of the earliest known hoaxes involving Bigfoot was from a guy named Jack Affair. He claimed in an 1884 newspaper that there was an ape-like creature that was captured in British Columbia. No doubt he made that printing there to be able to sell this outlandish tale and have those newspapers fly off of the newsstands. Number 12 is this. Even U.S. presidents have had a link of some sort to Bigfoot. Maybe not a direct link, but still an indirect one. For example, U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt one time was told a story by an elderly mountain man. This man was named Bowman, and he stated that there was a Bigfoot that both stalked him and the group that he was in. In fact, this Bigfoot ended up ransacking his beaver trapping camp, and when that happened, they also had the Bigfoot encounter where this thing broke the neck. Unfortunately, it was fatal, of one of their companions. And so this was a tale or slash story that was told to U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt. So who knows what he did with the information afterward, but that's about as close as a link that it has been to our U.S. presidents. Number 13 is this. One other mystery associated with the Bigfoot is, how do they eat? What do they do exactly? There's debates on whether they are truly 100% vegetarian or if they're actual meat eaters, like hardcore meat eaters. Loose evidence seems to suggest either one or the other, although there's always a chance that it could be both. Unfortunately, though, there's nothing that shows obvious proof that can have one way or the other, but still to this day you're going to have debate associated with what they eat. Number 14 is this. If you've ever had the misfortune, maybe now or in the future or in the past, of being stalked by a Bigfoot, apparently there's one attack you can try, but it won't do them. They are apparently immune to pepper spray. So how about that? If you have it ready to go, you're ready to launch it, basically spray Bigfoot with as much pepper spray as possible. It won't do anything to them. In fact, they've been known to be incapable of sneezing. I wonder how that trait works, right? Like, what are the nasal factors involved so that an animal doesn't sneeze? I mean, even my cat sneezes. So it's interesting that they don't. The best course of action you can do instead is to offer it food. Now, this won't work 100% of the time, but still, offering food does give it a reason to pause, at least. Who knows what will happen afterward? I imagine that's the most success right there. Another thing is this. Apparently, you can cry in front of Bigfoot. If you do that, it causes it to also pause, probably in confusion, maybe because of it probably hasn't seen anything cry before, and either it'll still attack you or it'll just leave you alone at that point. So some of the most interesting stuff you can do when it comes to Bigfoot. Number 15 is this. Proof of Bigfoot bones are very, very scarce. You ever wondered about that? I didn't, at least until I read this information, which makes sense in a weird way. Apparently, as much as there's lots of Bigfoots that are living out there in the U.S. and so on, where are the bones? How come they're not found, right? You would think that something would be found associated with them. Well, there's a belief that this is why that Bigfoots actually buried their dead, much like humans do. Whenever one of their own species dies, they end up essentially burying these bones, and then who knows if they do some kind of version of a ceremony like a funeral. But either way, though, it allows them to do this respectful act. Maybe they consider a respect to, and then also not have any evidence found afterward. The only thing with that is eventually all forms of urban development will find something. So any areas that Bigfoot thinks they're safe out there in the forest, eventually it'll be moved, and you'll have something else built there, like an apartment or who knows what else. So maybe that'll be an opportunity to try to find these type of bones. Number 16 is this. If you ever wondered what the mating season of a Bigfoot is, it seems to be this time period, March to April of every year. So if you're in a location that's known to have larger amounts of Bigfoot sightings, and you want to have something else particular interesting to try to find, that's this. It's going to be March to April. That's where you'll have a larger percentage of being able to find them there. Maybe this correlates as well with those vocalizations I was mentioning too, those howls that people were stating. They could truly be mating calls that are being heard throughout multiple parts of the forest. Number 17 is this. Some Bigfoot encounters, they are not real, they are not hoaxes as well, but they can be along the lines of something like this: mistaken identity. For example, American black bears, which are very tall as well, especially when they stand upright, they've been known to stand upright for quite some time, not forever, but still some periods of time, and they've been known to walk upright. So if you're in the forest area and you happen to see something large like this, it's standing upright and it's walking upright, I can see how American black bears will be mistaken for a Bigfoot. Obviously, you're not going to get a clear shot when it comes to looking through all that foliage, so you'll just see little bits and pieces of the American black bear here and there. So that can essentially help prove that. The only thing it doesn't prove, though, is what about the ones showcasing Bigfoot running? In other words, those type of encounters makes you wonder then if those are truly American black bears. Number 18 is this. One not so fan of Bigfoot is Joe Rogan, the infamous podcaster, the one now who always is making some form of news associated with his rantings or with his show. It turns out that on one of his shows, or maybe multiple, but those of you that listen to Joe Rogan, let me know in the comments below, but he has discussed the subject matter involving Bigfoot, and he has summarily stated that it is a hoax. True and clear, 100%, it's a hoax. I don't know if this means that he thinks like it's people trying to scam people or people just trying to get money from it, who knows, but he has also mocked those within the Bigfoot research community. So those of you that know more info on that, post it below. I'd love to hear if anyone heard that particular podcast. Number 19 is this. The quest for Bigfoots to this day shows no ends. Even though the results can be mixed, to this day, people will still be out there trying to find this cryptid. In fact, one of the most famous examples is that show, or was that show, Finding Bigfoot. It aired for a good number of episodes. I read somewhere it was 9 seasons, and another one it was 11. Someone let me know in the comments too. But 100 episodes were aired, and despite the fact that it was called Finding Bigfoot, not a single piece of evidence, like actual smoking gun proof, was ever showcased of them finding Bigfoot. So what a weird way of calling the show, right? Finding Bigfoot, 100 episodes, and yet it never shows them actually finding Bigfoot. But if anyone has seen the show, is it a good show? Let me know too when it comes to that. And number 20 is something that I've talked about in the past on my channel. There's apparently a mixture of worlds when it comes to Bigfoot and UFOs. It has happened. Multiple sightings have included both of them being within the vicinity of each other. And what I mean is this. One example was in 1973 when a mother and a daughter were awakened. They were sleeping in their home. They awakened to some noise, and then that's when they saw outside a Bigfoot actually walked towards a beam of light. This beam of light was coming from the sky, from something that was shaped almost like an umbrella. It was a UFO. It was, and to them, it looked like this creature, this Bigfoot, was actually returning to its ship. And yet others believe that Bigfoot are actually being abducted by UFOs. So much like people are to this day, you hear about those stories still about these poor souls that get abducted into these UFOs. Apparently, aliens and UFOs love doing this with Bigfoot. Who knows how they are more able to successfully capture Bigfoot than humans, but they were able to do it, and then that's where, again, you see both of them within the vicinity of each other. But that's pretty much it. 20 things you didn't know about Bigfoot. Let me know if I missed anything else that was important. Let me know in your comments, too, about some of those items I mentioned, and then I'll be able to do, hopefully, a suggestions video soon. All right, everybody. Thanks again, as always. Take care. Bye.